Welcome to the Empowering Choices podcast. My name is Joshua.
I am Lucas.
And I'm Eric.
Eric and Lucas are licensed professional counselors, and today we're going to be talking about what to do when you're missing one of the parenting tools. And in particular, we're going to be talking about teamwork. And so there's some other podcasts where we talk about some of these parenting tools. That's a foundational part of everything. And then sometimes you may be missing one of those. And so that's kind of what we're talking about here today is missing teamwork.
I can envision a lot of different ways where you could be missing teamwork. The first one that comes to mind would be kind of like a single parent household. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of the direction you were thinking of when we were thinking about missing parts of the team?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's in fact, I just had a conversation with a single parent mom, and she's struggling with her little girl. And I had mentioned, okay, now, is there any way for you to bring this up to dad, who's in the girl's life, and be able to create kind of a co-parenting supportive piece? Because right now she's struggling with, at her age, of I want to control everything and it needs to run my way. Mm-hmm. And if dad comes and takes her to all these fun things after she's been treating you horribly, it's only going to reinforce the behavior. So how can you guys, kind of re-deepen your teamwork around this issue to where dad can be a part of, okay, well, this is what we were going to go do, and we've got some things to address here.
So I'm thinking of a couple of variations on, again, I feel like lacking teamwork could go so many different ways, right?
It could.
The scenario you're talking about sounds like there's a divorce, and so there's some separated parenting happening, but then it sounds like on top of that, there's also some, I don't know, I'll use the word kind of antagonism of like, it's not only missing, but it's like worse than missing. Like
not
the other partner is making things more difficult.
Without knowing it.
Oh, okay.
See,
okay, so it's like an ignorant. Yeah, okay, so again, more variations on that.
Right, and that's what I was talking to her about is how can you talk to the father about what you're seeing with your guys' child, and will he be supportive? Because this is an important parenting moment that if you were both together in the same household, you'd be addressing this as a team. And you're right, there are a lot of different sides to this because you can have your significant other partner in the home and still be missing a teamwork piece. I used to know a dad who was more of a stay-at-home dad, and he had two boys, and he would discipline one or both the boys, and they might lose favorite items. And then when mom came home from work, they would tell mom what they had lost and what had happened, and she would go and get them and just immediately give them back. Mm-hmm.
Either through not paying attention or possibly not caring.
It was not caring.
Okay, so that was the kind of more, I'll say, aggressive lack of teamwork.
Yeah.
The worse than not present kind of teamwork.
Yeah, she'd completely undermine the other parent, which then makes him more and more powerless in the kid's eyes. Right.
Well, I mean, children enjoy triangulating, and particularly they just simply enjoy getting what they want. So
we're back to emotional-based thinking, and when they find an opening, it's going to be the natural action is to go for that opening. I don't fault them for that,
Right, because it's the natural instinct of children that they need to be educated and trained and habitualized into better pro-social behavior.
Exactly. And so that's where, some of these different sides are there. If you don't have that partner, in the house, then, are there different ways that you can bring in other family members that can help be a part of that team is another side to this.
So, I mean, really, we believe that these are important foundational parenting tools. Your blood bond, an established relationship, all of these things. And so when you're missing one, the answer is, how can you get as much of it as possible based on your current situation?
Right.
And so it's like, well, what do you do when you're missing it? Find it. Find as much of it as you can.
As much as you can.
Exactly.
The developing a structure is one thing that can help in that situation because, when you have both parents there, developing a structure that everybody is a part of and adheres to actually forms an invisible third parent.
If you can tell the child, well, this is just the way it is because these are the rules of the house, you're kind of leaning on a partner that's not there.
Right. And there's different ways to develop that. I mean, Love and Logic has a really great way is if the kids have a part in helping to develop the rules and the consequences of the house, then you can come back to, remember when we put this together? I mean, wasn't this consequence actually your idea? And you have more buy-in. And so that helps with that missing teamwork that might not be there.
The consequences say this is what's supposed to happen, and you're not inherently being the bad guy.
Right.
More
The structure
directly.
is the one that's actually being the bad guy.
The structure is being the bad guy. Yeah, and if you can pull that off, which I envision that, you can absolutely get a child to buy into that the rules just say this is the way it is.
If you buy into that,
Sure.
then you can get a child to buy into that because they don't have long-term, big picture thinking. And so when you're saying, well, this is the way this works, then they will come to the conclusion eventually that, okay, that's just the way that works. You want to eventually allow them and teach them how to be able to challenge certain things and in the way to be able to do that, because as they get older, it doesn't necessarily always need to be the way it works per se. Running with sharp scissors in the house will probably not change for any developmental age. But if the cat got some kind of a string, wrapped around their neck, there could be an exception there for certain age kids or adults to run in the house with sharp scissors, and so you have to be able to help them develop that thinking, which in teamwork, that can work a lot better because you, mom and dad, you have different perspectives. And so being able to get together and talk about situations as they're occurring, you have different backgrounds, you have different experiences, you have different perspectives on your relationship with the child. It can work very well to have those pieces in there. If you don't have that, then you may need to have, some of the closest relatives, coaches, neighbors who are all really, close people that and know your children.
So kind of one of the takeaways from if you feel like, well, again, there's a lot of them, but one of the takeaways from if you don't feel like you have teamwork in your situation and there are people who could be on your team, like the skill or the tool of communicating with them would be a way to address that deficit. And even if you're trying to reach out to people who you want to be on your team, kind of coaches and teachers and relatives and uncles, that communication would be kind of more of a request or an invitation. And then you have the situation you were mentioning of the divorced single mom who you don't think the dad's malicious in this situation, but the communication, and boy, do we have material on that other places, communicating with your separated from or divorced co-parent, how to create the most teamwork you can for the situation you find yourself in. Because if you're separated or divorced, as we've expressed, we don't expect anyone to be best friends with their separated partner. But if you're still raising kids together, you need to make the best teamwork that you can.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty cool videos lately. Somehow the YouTube algorithm, selected me for this, but it's, I've seen some videos where people have made, maybe where they're exchanging kids, dropping off for the weekend or whatever. They talk about, me and my spouse didn't work out, but we worked together, for the betterment of our kids. And, I've seen some videos of people talking about how important that is, but I have a question. So that's best case scenario, right? Like you're so good at it that you're making TikTok videos about how good you're co-parenting despite a divorce. What happens when, say that things are just really nasty and say that mom's trying to wrangle in the kids, but every time they're with their dad won't communicate, dad does malicious stuff, dad has totally different values and everything. Is there some point where you just say, that's how it is at dad's, but when you walk in this door, this is how we're operating to try to provide some type of barrier? Does that work to say, yes, we have no control over here, this is chaos, but as soon as you how do you handle that if there's just zero cooperation and if there is malicious intent on the other side to just turn all the rules, everything upside down?
You do just kind of what you said right there. You set up a structure and a routine at your house. Let's go with mom's house. And you make sure that you have in there interlaced nurturing and time with the kids. And you have that happen on a consistent, predictable basis. And that can compensate for what's going on at dad's house, because generally speaking, with what you're describing, dad's probably taking them to do things, giving them no rules, letting them stay up whenever, letting them do whatever, but not spending time with them. He may even be taking them to Disneyland, but as I have explained to parents for years, coloring at the table with your kids beats Disneyland every time. And the reason is Disneyland is icing on the cake for the relationship.
Yeah.
Because I've known lots of people that are like, oh yeah, I went to Disneyland. That was kind of fun. And I'm like, what do you mean kind of fun?
Yeah.
I hear Mickey's really fun. And they're like, well, it would have been fun, except that's the only thing we did as a family. And all the rest of the time, we didn't really get along.
Well, and I can even envision a trip to Disneyland in the act of going. If you don't have a relationship with your kids, the experience itself isn't going to be great because you don't necessarily know why they're excited to be there, or if you're not engaged with them while they're there.
Icing for a cake is meant to go on a cake. You can take a spoon and just eat it out of the jar, but generally speaking, you're going to get a stomach ache by the end.
It's not a long-term nutritional solution,
right?
Which is what you're raising your children needs to be.
A cake is not a highly nutritional thing, but it's meant to have the frosting on the outside, not the frosting eaten alone. Whereas parenting and having kids is meant to be a nurturing, long-term relationship. And so if you don't have the time into that relationship, then just taking them to Disneyland isn't going to be any more than just giving them a spoon and frosting.
Do we need the food pyramid of parenting?
That might be kind of funny.
Because Disneyland is at the top peak of the, this is where, sugar goes.
Right. Well, and just coloring at the table, you're experiencing them.
Right.
You're spending time with them, and there's talk, which is their developmental level. But at the same time, those are the memories that are really going to build the relationship overall. And so that's why I say, coloring at the table beats Disneyland every time. Just find ways to spend time with your kids, and that's what's going to help develop those different situations. Generally, what happens is the relationship not being there at dad's house in the scenario that you described, they're going to go, yeah, we get the differences too. And we can't get dad to do anything with this. So we make the best at dad's house, and then we go back to mom's house, and, that's where, we get time spent with us, and we know that there's someone there who will be there for us.
One of the ways that I saw that played out is I have a client who's a dad, and he attempts to create rules in his house and structure in his house, and he has an ex-wife who, the description that I hear, again, all I have to go on is what I'm told, is that mom, his divorced wife, doesn't have rules at her house. And so he has an older daughter who's in her 20s, early 20s now. And she eventually told her father, I don't want to live with you anymore. I'm done with this. I'm living with mom. And for her later teenage years, that's exactly what happened, is she distanced herself from her dad. She said, you have too many rules. I don't like this. She didn't actually explicitly say that out loud, but that's the interpretation of what we think happened. But now that she's an adult, she's doing that thing that we talk about of she's reflecting back on what happened, and she's reestablishing the relationship with her dad going, yeah, you were right? You were doing the things that I needed. And she has a younger sister who's doing the same things. And this older sister is now telling her dad, keep doing what you did. That's what she needs. She needs these structure and these rules, and I ran away from them, and I shouldn't have. Don't you let up on her, and she may run away. Run away, go to her mom's, which is actually explicitly what is happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like that's one of the ways that I saw this scenario play out, is the teamwork was not as present as it could have been, and they're making the best of a really difficult situation, obviously. But yeah, when the child becomes an adult, they'll have the ability to reflect with a greater sense of logical thinking on what you did. And even if it does turn out that they end up living with Disneyland dad, to use a phrase, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we're not trying to beat up on dads, because the scenario I just mentioned is it's flipped.
Right,
It's Disneyland mom.
Yeah.
Well, you said they'll have the ability to do that. It's an automatic.
Oh, the reflection on the
automatically, when you get your logical thinking, then go back and reprocess. Now, what was my childhood like? And how do I feel that I was treated, and how do I feel it went? This is why be your kid's best friend parenting is so bad, because they're going to look back and go, you shouldn't have been my best friend.
Yeah.
I needed to have these things. I can see where not having these things now is now causing me problems in adulthood. You were supposed to be the adult. I didn't know I shouldn't have cupcakes every morning for breakfast.
Or frosting with
a spoon, or staying up all hours of the night, or not doing my homework and, just playing Fortnite, or any of these different things that they're going to go, wow, now I see the deficits in myself as an adult. And, some kids are still going to like you just fine, but a lot of kids are going to harbor resentment and anger throughout their adulthood, even if they don't at first express it to you. Because they may express it like this: they only call you when they need something.
Oh, this is the kind of like the adult child after kind of having reflected on the situation.
Exactly.
Well, I think we have some more of these deficits and fundamentals to talk about in future episodes, but I think that's probably
pretty much wraps that one up. So if you're interested in more, we have a whole lot more on our website at empoweringchoices.community, and in our app, search Empowering Choices Parenting. And we have courses, we have video courses, we have foundational courses, and we have our parenting manual in there. So make sure that you go check that out, and we will see you on the next show.